Time, the most valuable resource of all. Every morning we wake up with 1,440 minutes to spend. Every night we go to sleep, our balance gets wiped out, only to wake up with 1,440 more minutes the next morning. We can't save time. We can only spend or invest it. It's a level playing field. Everyone has the exact same allocation. However, some people achieve far greater results. The one common factor is that, well, accountants never have enough of it. Speak to any accountant anywhere in the world, and we do, and they will tell you that they just don't have enough time. And with so much regulatory and technological changes, it's not surprising some accountants feel overwhelmed and challenged just to keep up in this crazily busy world. Many accountants I talk to feel like they're sprinting just to stand still, and it can feel like you're on a chargeable hour hamster wheel. Given this, it makes so much sense to find ways to find time for necessary positive changes. And that's what this webinar is all about. My name is Micheál O'Neill and I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar where we explore how to find time for advisory services and, in fact, any positive change. And I'm delighted to be joined by Richard Walters. Richard is a renowned thought leader in the profession who has spent his whole career from building his own practice from startup to sale to a top 10 firm to developing leading advisory delivery system for accountants. Richard, thank you for joining me today. So Richard, time. What are we going to look at here today?
Well, Micheál, it depends if we've got enough time, really.
Well, Richard, I think this is important, so let's prioritise time for this one.
It's a deal. So this is what we're going to cover today. Why do we need to find time? Yeah, we've got to ask that question. We're going to look at the precious value of time and balance, important balance. We're going to look at the benefits of advisory time. And then we're going to look at how to magically, but simply, find time. So, of course, we're going to finish with those vital next steps, as we always do. So why do you need to find time? Well, here we go again with the digital revolution. And it is a true revolution. It's changed what clients demand, it's changed what we all demand as consumers, and it's inevitably demystified what we do. And that's just put us under more pressure. We aren't on our own. Other sectors are in the same situation, but there's more and more pressure to do more and more in less time. So far from computers giving us all this relaxation time, try saying that to an accountant.
No, it's the exact opposite, because now always on, always having your kind of email on your phone, there's an expectation that clients that you are always there for them, you're always accessible. And very often that can actually just reduce your productivity, because now you're continuously getting interrupted when you're doing things, when you want to find that time that you've set aside to do the most important things. So it definitely is a real challenge. And the fact is, technology isn't going anywhere, and it's not going to. My whole family is deeply immersed in accounting, but my brother-in-law is an accountant in practice. And for years, he resisted. So he had, when mobile phones came out first, he had one, but then he actually got rid of his mobile phone. And for years, he resisted, but eventually he's back now and he has a smartphone. And, there's no getting away from it, no matter how much we want.
No escape. It's just happening, and we've just got to go along with it. And it's classically demystified what we do and put us under time pressure. And the way that we're advising firms to deal with this is really a very simple strategy. It's a two-pronged strategy. Make your compliance services hyper efficient, or your traditional services using technology, cloud accounting, and in parallel with that, you develop advisory services that are growth effective, and you complement the two things together, and there you are, there's your strategy. It's both, not either or. And of course, it's a future-proof strategy. It looks ahead to the future and the way things are going to be. So one of the reasons we need to find time is because this basic concept of these key performance factors underpin every practice's growth. We need to win new clients, we need to increase what clients spend with us, and we need to nurture the relationships to keep them longer, keep them happy. And if we don't do any of those things well, it will detrimentally damage our firm. So we have to find time to do that. There is no choice.
And and why, I suppose, why this is why we're talking about this from a business advisory perspective. It's all about the value proposition. It's all about, in order to keep the clients you want, in order to attract the clients you want and increase the spend, you have to have some angle that sets out and that the clients can actually see the value in what you're providing. I always say that, okay, yes, client affordability, it is a factor, and some businesses do not have, kind of spare money to spend. But those same businesses spend, a couple of $1,000 a year on their phone bills, spend a couple of $1,000 a year on things. It's the value that they see in the services that you provide. And really, summarising the first couple of slides back, they do not value compliance services. They view compliance services as exercises that computers can and do undertake on a regular basis. They know the software packages out there that they have used in the past, or that their friends, and now it's not about even the people who have used the software. It's about what other business owners are saying about how easy this whole accounting thing is. The basic compliance services, they are not going anywhere. There's still a place, a necessary place for them. But we have to look at levelling up and providing what our clients actually want. And that's the advisory-led services.
And finding the time to do those things, win clients, increase spend with advisory, and nurture those relationships. Because if we don't do that, we will see damage. So, busy can be a dangerous place to be. It can create complacency. Sometimes when you talk to an accountant, you say, how are things going? They say,
busy.
Really busy.
Oh, really busy.
Really busy. Now, if I'm one of their clients, that's the worst thing they can say to me. Because if I actually happen to like them, I won't give them anything else to do.
Absolutely.
And of course, they didn't really mean that. When they answered me and said they're really busy, they're trying to say, I'm really doing very well. But unfortunately, people don't hear that.
Yeah.
So with us all doing okay as accountants, and with us being busy, there is this change being driven by the digital revolution. Back in 1997, Bill Gates wrote a book called The Road Ahead. And in the book, he talked about the dangers of change creeping up on us, basically. Mm-hmm. And one of the problems with change is that, people like us, thought leaders, people in the various industries, over-egg the change in the next sort of short period coming. And as a result, everybody just ignores it because nothing much changes. And then bang, the change happens, it's caught up, and it's too late to do anything. And that definitely is one of the dangers with change. And the digital revolution has meant that everything's changing quicker than ever before. Mm-hmm. So what Bill Gates said in 1997 is not only still true today, but it's extra true because of the speed of change. And there is a danger of a fur-lined rut. I often quote Earl Nightingale, who said, a rut is a coffin with the ends kicked out. And a fur-lined rut is a particularly dangerous place to be because it's warm and dry. And that could be us with our decent profits, busy. So busy can really be a four-letter word when we're planning for future success. We say it so many times, success is a process, not a one-off event. But that success has to actually start now. And that's why finding time for positive change is so important. So let's look at the precious value of time and that word that we use, balance. Now, I think it's true to say as accountants, we've always lived by the clock. we've charged by the clock, which incidentally clients have never liked. They have never liked that. In fact, they hate it. They have always hated it, and they still hate it. They hate the concept of being charged for what you do, irrespective of what you are doing. And time input in the future is much more likely to be a form of sort of job costing measurement rather than a billing process. That's what true value pricing is. So our time input into our day, into our working day, is much more going to be a job costing measurement than it is a billing process, which clients are going to like a lot. Now, and busy really did used to be that old red badge of courage, that red badge of success, but we've sort of got to change our attitude to this. We aren't a production-centric model anymore. We're a client-centric model. We're not on that chargeable hour hamster wheel. Things are changing, and leverage is the new aim. Leverage is the way you future-proof. So for me, leverage is the new red badge of success, not busy. And I'd love to hear accountants, when they're asked how they're doing, saying it's really good, I've got some great leverage built into my firm. Well, I live in hope with that one.
Yeah, there are a couple. So I've come across a couple of people now who, basically they're looking to nearly, and it was so they're looking at building their accountancy firm more as a business owner. There's even one model, they're based out across Eastern European, where an accountant, believe it or not, it's a sole practitioner who has about 20 offices. But the only way that he has managed to do that is he doesn't hire accountants to manage the offices. He actually hires managers to hire each one, who the accountants, kind of work underneath. And that was the first time that I've ever heard leverage on that scale. And you can see, I are starting here to more, stories where now goals for accountants is, right, well, I want to have my firm, I want to operate it on 2-3 days a week. Not that they're going to sit on the beach for the other two, but that their management and whatever goes into their firm is done in independent. But I think there's a long way for most people to get to that level.
And of course, in a leverage model, time is truly precious, but it's what you do. So if we look at precious and balanced time, if you spend 10 minutes in the dentist waiting room waiting to go and sit in the chair to have, a filling done or a tooth out or something, is that 10 minutes the same amount of time as you have when you're frolicking in the swimming pool on holiday with your child or your grandchild? It certainly doesn't feel like the same amount of time. So it's all about how you use time, And of course, time management is definitely an oxymoron. You cannot manage time. Good luck with that one. You can only manage how you use it, just as you said in your opening. And of course, working harder is just not an option. I'm already worried about what I see, the amount of hours that I see partners putting in accountancy firms. When I look at our clients and I talk to them, I worry because, ultimately we are potentially damaging our health. We can't keep on putting more and more and more hours in. And I'm a very hard-working person. I expect everybody I work with to work hard, but there is a limit. And we all need a balanced life if we're going to be healthy. And my experience is, accountancy firms are doing okay, and I see partners doing okay, but they're working longer and longer hours for a little bit more. I don't know what you find.
No, it's definitely one thing that kind of we see, and I think that in some ways the performance of firms is at the specifically kind of at the sacrifices that the partners and the team make outside of that. And as a business model, I don't think that is replicable into the future. I think there has to be some sort of a change. There has to be some move away from how we build. I even had one story where, and this was a large firm, where the managers were actually doing overtime but not recording the overtime because they didn't want to go. So they're literally, the managers were working for free for the clients. Now that's just, there's something seriously wrong when you get to a situation like that.
And you see the next generation, they're not going to be prepared to do this.
No, I have. So I missed the millennial. There's a couple of different definitions of it, but I'm kind of either 1 year just outside it, or I'm not in it at all. But I do have my wife's sister. She's kind of much younger. She's a true millennial. And to see the difference in when she's going, so she came out after doing her master's, was going, searching for jobs, and to see the difference in her approach and her thought process. There was one global brand where, in my mind, if I could have had the opportunity to work there, I would do anything to go work there. I would work there for free to do that.
McDonald's.
But in her mind, it was, oh no, I would have to. So it was an opportunity in the UK. Oh well, I'd have to go live in the UK, and that's hassle. I don't want to go to the UK. I want to stay in Ireland. So but the difference in thought. So when it comes to these people coming up, they're not going to be the ones who are going to stay in the office until 8, 9 o'clock every night. They're as interested in what they do in the office as they are, or what happens outside the office. And we're going to have to find the balance for them.
That's where leverage comes in. That's where we've got to be cute. It's all about, as we just said, how we use the time.
Yeah.
As you know, we talk a lot about the cookie jar, the metaphor of the cookie jar, and strangely, there's lots of messages and things you can draw from the one metaphor. But my favourite is that if you've got this cookie jar, and I give you a bunch of rocks to put in there, you drop in the rocks and it's all clanking around, and there's little gaps between the rocks, and then I ask you to fill it up with some pebbles, and I give you a bucket of pebbles and you spread it all off, and there's still gap, and then I ask you to fill it up with sand, which all the sand floats down between the pebbles, and a lot of people say then it's full up. But of course, people who've heard this story before, and people who've got a different sort of brain to us, work out that actually you can pour in a bucket of water and then you fill it up.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to see. So we've kind of done that live with people. So you start off the opposite way around, and okay, I think I don't know. I think it was a professor in Stanford. I know it's been attributed to, and he was doing the demonstration for his students. Kind of start off, and he started off putting the sand in first, and then put the small pebbles, and then there was only space to put in a couple of the big rocks. But really in life, what we have to do is we have to look at what the big rocks are for us. What are the most important priorities? We put them in first. We then take the rest of the stuff. And for most people, yes, you have business priorities, but your ultimate priorities in life should extend, and you need to take account of your ultimate priorities in life. How much time off you have, what time you spend with your kids, your family, the holidays you take. They are the rocks. They are the most important things that happen in a lot of cases outside of the workplace. So you put in your big rocks first. They're the most important things. Then you put in your smaller pebbles. Then you put in your sand. And when you think it's all full, well, actually, no, it's not. And there's, we can always find the space to do the things that are most important. The real thing is, what is most important in your life? And secondly, are you the one who's dictating the important things, or is somebody else dictating it? So really it's about taking control of your time, taking control of your focus and attention. Yes, we can't manage time, so time can't be managed. All we can do is manage our focus and attention in any 1 minute, and in all the minutes that stick together. And that's really about where, kind of coming up with what the priorities are. And for purposes of this, I think one of the big priorities that firms have to look to is about building advisory in their firm.
Yeah, and I think so many people think the message is when you think it's full up, you can always get some more in. But actually, it's all about putting the rocks in first.
Yeah.
And that's the priorities. And of course, it's an individual's priorities. We all have different priorities in life. But if we're talking about, the priorities that come with what's important to an accountancy firm, that's what we need to look at. So, I think that's a really important lesson to think about how powerful creating priorities are. So, let's have a look at the benefits of advisory, which, as you say, seems to offer so many opportunities to use this time better. So why is advisory so valuable? Well, first of all, it's client-centric. Clients want to be understood. It's all about the clients. That's why they value it. It's recurring. We can create recurring advisory programs, packages. Recurring fees are always really valuable. I mean, the next one is a biggie when you talk about value in time. My experience is partners get anything between 25 and 33% over their normal compliance charging rate. Some people get 50%. That is a big difference in that 1 hour time. And of course, it does generate other fees, technical consulting and compliance. We're back to classic leverage now. Particularly if other people in your firm are doing that sort of work. It's proper leverage. And of course, it wins clients by having a differentiation and making that differentiation very visible. And again, we're back to leverage again. And you can then have a shift up for challenge culture in your firm where everybody is moving up a level and doing a different level of work, which creates space for others to come in below. And of course, what that all does is it creates a future-proof strategy, that parallel strategy of hyper-efficient compliance in parallel with starting advisory. And back to the classic one, clients value us, you value your own time.
But it's like, there is, if there was anything else that I thought would be more beneficial for a firm to roll out, or for a firm to start doing, or for an accountant to start doing, I would be talking about that. There's nothing else out there. Yes, you could go get a tax qualification. Do you know what? It's just more compliance, it's more consulting. You might actually get, kind of a small raise in fees, but it's not leveraged. It's not, replica. There's no way of putting it in, and it's the whole business model for advisory that can roll out is what has me so excited, because I do think it's one of, it's one of the real avenues from a marketing perspective, from a kind of business generation perspective, from a fee generation perspective, from a leverage perspective. It spans so many areas, and that's where I just think advisory is so invaluable for firms.
Yeah, my own experience of that was, I remember so clearly always being busy, and there was a time when I used to do tax, auditing and accounting, just like other accountants. And I never had a spare minute, but I knew that I was good at getting new work and I couldn't see how I could grow. So, I had to leverage my time, I had to move, shift up for challenge, bring in other people, bring in packages, became a real deliverer of advisory services. And I literally multiplied my fees base by 5, my personal portfolio. Still just me. But then underneath me had all these people to help me. And interestingly, those people who were helping me had fantastic jobs. All their friends who were in other firms, they used to just laugh at them because they were at a level that was just so stimulating for them. So it sort of works, I don't say this, hey, look at me, look how clever I am. Yeah. I know leverage works. It really does. And, working harder is just not really an option. It really isn't. Otherwise, you're just moving the chess pieces around the board and not getting anywhere. You're just shuffling things around. And what would have been the point of me going from doing auditing to going to do tax consulting? I'd still, you end up basically filling the whole of my day. The way it worked was proper leverage. So how to magically, but simply, find time? Well, first of all, prioritization, as we discovered with the cookie jar, is what it's all about. Now, a double bind is where we have our hands together, they're locked together, and when we pull to the left and the right, they stay even tightly binded, even more tightly binded. That's what you call double bind. The more you try to escape it, the worse you make it. You know, you need time to make a big change, but you're so busy you haven't got time to do it, which means that it becomes even more important that you find time to make the change. And we've all had these double binds in our lives. The way out of double bind is really simple. You go towards it. And as you go towards it, you break your hands and you're out of the double bind. So what that means is you take positive action. You are proactively going towards the double bind. And that's what this is all about. Because you can't control the you can only control the controllable. You know, you can't control the uncontrollable. So when you have this real intention to prioritize, that's when you give it attention. And, you know, we all know that people who've got goals and record them and have clear objectives are much more likely to get what they want. And if you want and need a positive change with time, you have to have a plan. And you have to act, i.e. you have to have intention. And that's not about dreaming of having more time, which we've already identified is never going to come your way. It's just about reprioritising and changing what you do.
Yeah, and the prioritization, there's a book by a gentleman called Gary Kelleher, The One Thing. And it really it's become much more than a book. It's nearly become a movement. He has an entire following, and there's an entire, I suppose, methodology around what he does in a following. But his core concept is, what is the one thing that I can do that will either make everything else easier or easier or non-essential to do? So you have to look at what do I need to do? You need to create your kind of, your plan. You need to identify what your priorities are. So that's going to be your one thing, is essentially your priority. That could be the development of advisory in your firm. That could be increasing multiplying my personal portfolio 5 times. That could be, kind of the increasing the top line, or, kind of advisory fees in the firm. So there's lots of examples of what one thing you could do. And if you set that one thing, my goal and my prioritization is that happens in, a specific time frame. So we give that 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is. And then what you're doing is you're breaking down the journey from here to that point, breaking it down into small actionable steps. And then every day you're going in, you're looking at, well, what's the one thing I can do now that will either make everything else easier or not necessary, and move and keep knocking down through. And then what he does is he talks about, kind of dividing your day, that the first 4 hours of your day should really go in doing work that's moving you towards your goal. Because you can't, let's face it, you can't just shut your door and lock all the clients out. You're not going to be able to create that kind of space. But that you dedicate the best part of your day towards reaching your goal. And I think it's, kind of, if there is to be any change, well, I think that's one of the key things that has to happen.
Absolutely. I've got the key ingredients here of a leverage plan. Now, when I'm coaching managing partners of firms, I'd say in nearly all the cases, we end up with a leverage plan. And we actually have a plan with specifics, with changed actions, with measurements, because if you don't have a plan to make changes, nothing's going to happen. I think Einstein said, didn't he, it's the definition of insanity, keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. Well, if you carry on as managing partner, keep doing the same thing, you're never going to find any time. You actually have to have a plan with objectives, clear objectives, articulated objectives, and then you need to have the actions you need to fill that gap, and then you need to measure success. it's quite an uncomfortable place for managing partners to be when we're coaching through this, because, we're talking about significant change here, and, obviously one has to weigh up risks against the rewards. So the first thing is delegation. I mean, it's a much used word, and we have covered all sorts of things elsewhere on what it's all about. But essentially, it isn't abdication of responsibility. It's just the opposite, actually. It's giving people in an organisation, people who work for you, including yourself, balanced authority and responsibility. If people don't have balanced authority and responsibility, they typically don't behave particularly well. If they have too much authority and not enough responsibility, become little Hitlers and very disruptive to all and sundry in the firm, then people will recognise that. Equally, if they have too much authority and not enough responsibility, there's no empowerment. So, you have to have that authority and responsibility in balance for everybody, actually. And one of the things about, making delegation work is to make sure that it is driven, by clear outcomes, and that those involved, you as well as the person you're delegating to, understand those responsibilities and authorities. And obviously it's one of the ways to actually leverage time. Of course, one of the problems is, as accountants, we tend to be sort of very left brain, very logical, and there is a danger that we micromanage. And the chances are, whoever is going to have a function, a role, or responsibility delegated to, they're probably not going to do it as well as you do it. It's not necessarily true. Certainly when I did that delegation years ago in my firm, I found people did better than I did, partly because I was getting bored by doing it all those years, and partly because they were keen and all the other reasons, and younger and had new skills. But, it isn't always that way. Often you would do the job better. But if they can do it to a required standard, then you can shift up for challenge. The other thing is to get serious with value pricing. Now, not just talk about it. We've all read about it, we've all heard about it. But actually get serious. Make our services value priced. Packages, programs, fixed price, so that time input is a job costing thing, it's not a pricing thing. The other thing is, don't reinvent the wheel. Buy into things like the complete advisory solution. You don't have to learn how to do this from scratch. You don't need to be an expert. Why would you want to reinvent the wheel? You're going to add 2, 3, 4 years to the process. You probably don't have that long. The other thing is intelligent recruitment. I think if you follow the advisory route, it gives you the ability to focus on facilitation, which means you don't have to recruit qualified accountants. I'm saying you can't, but you can recruit non-accountants who have the necessary skill sets. And also, the fact that you're doing this sort of work, even if it's only a part-time role in the new job they're coming to, you're going to attract good people because they're going to want to do this sort of interesting, intellectually stimulating work. And it'll make a real difference when it comes to recruitment. And, one of the other things I say is you're going to have to drop roles. It's an inevitability. If you want to leverage your time and have a leverage plan, you've got to drop roles. And that involves what I call saying no but. You say, no, I can't do that, but. I always used to have a rule, and you probably heard this, that if anyone ever came in, I always had an open door, but if anybody came in my office with something they wanted some help with, I insisted that they actually had an idea of the solution.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds a bit crass, and I know it sounds a bit unreasonable, but I used to send them out if they didn't. So you only do that once, and everybody else hears. Having said that, if they did come in with something, however crazy it was, I would spend time with them. And I think saying no but, whether it's to your partners, whether it's to a client, whether it's to the people who work for you, is so powerful.
Yeah, well, I do think I think that is one of the big challenges, especially if you're a partner, people look to you. But I also think that sometimes people think that it's just an awful lot easier just to go and ask you to tell you, whereas they won't go and kind of spend the time to invest in actually trying to figure it out for themselves. But I think that very, very question, well, what do you think some of the possible solutions are, I would always start with that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, the rule was that had to have done that before they came in. And not just that, but it's a wonderful learning opportunity. I think also some of us, it makes us feel good to feel important, and that's not leverage. Mm-hmm. Ego hasn't really got a good place in a leverage plan. So, if you can really get this and get prioritization, it really can transform your working life. It's no exaggeration to say this, because one thing you can't do is work harder. That really is not a plan. So, if we're going to get serious with value pricing, it means we've got to jump off that chargeable hour hamster wheel. And of course, the faster we're going round, the more we're going to hurt ourselves when we jump off. So we've got to get off it. So, the way to do it is client-centric value pricing. We need to have advisory packages with 3 options, with or without compliance services. There's 2 ways of doing it. And as I said before, where time is a job costing factor, not a billing process. It's about moving our model from a production model to a client-centric model. If you think about it, the way it's been up to now, we're almost like shop floor workers on a production wheel, just producing the hours. It's much better to get a business into a truly client-centric mode. But not to worry about this. It's an evolution, not a revolution. It isn't all going to change overnight. So that's a big reassurance. I talked about not reinventing the wheel, and of course, leverage is without a shadow of a doubt the new success badge. It's not busy, Often these advisory services are new areas of service for many firms. So, of course, it's important to acquire best practice, just buy in that expertise, buy a process that's already there. You don't have to be this expert. You don't have to become an expert overnight. It's simply not going to happen. And, of course, facilitation approaches are really, truly client-centric, and they give you all sorts of possibilities in terms of leverage. And, of course, if you have a best practice advisory process and a delivery system, you literally speed up all the prioritization of time, the better use of time.
Yeah, and it was, I suppose Tim Ferriss has very much made famous the concept of the 4-hour work week. And, I honestly think that if he had written that book 10, 15 years ago, he could well have been lynched and said it was ridiculous. But, I think in today, and basically the 4-hour work week, what he is, well, it's outsourcing and leverage. That's his whole thing. It's finding the places where, you can leverage and get, you get the most use out of your time and get the most value from your time.
Yeah, and that's a long way from being busy on the chargeable hamster wheel. But there's a lot of space between the two, and that's absolutely the space that I encourage partners to move into. They're 2 ends of the extreme, really. Yeah. We talked about intelligent recruitment, but when you look at the developing business model that we have as accountants building, it means that we don't have to fill our business with accountants. I know it's sacrilege, but it's true. And they're easier to acquire. And the new skills that these people, whether they're accountants or not, need, they need to be a good questioner and an attentive listener. They need to be proactive and probing. They need to think strategically, not just be a problem solver. Yeah, they do need all-round commercial acumen, of course they do, but they also need empathy and a sort of highly supportive nature. Now, you don't have to be an accountant to have those skills. You also can be an accountant with those skills, and you can learn those skills. All skills can be learned. But of course, what that does is it opens up opportunities for growth. It doesn't restrict us. And that's where intelligent recruitment really comes in. Now, I talked about dropping roles, so let's look at it in a little bit more detail. What roles could you drop? Well, chargeable client tax, accounting and audit work. Of course you could, as long as you've got somebody else to do it, and typically you do. Administration of the firm, that's one of the favourites. When I do leverage plans, that one's top of the list. Financial management, sacrilege, but honestly, you can recruit people to do this, and any other roles you might have. However, the important roles in your business, in your practice, are without a shadow of a doubt the strategic leadership of the business. It's a small amount of time, but it's absolutely vital. And I think if one of the things that I would criticise the accountants that I coach more than anything is they do not give their practice the strategic leadership it deserves. Why? What's their reason? Too busy. And half the time they're busy doing administration. Now, in any logical mind, that makes no sense at all. So if you're going to have a plan, you're going to plan changes. Business development, yeah, it's typically pretty important. And, you know, very often the partners do that best. So I would be loath to completely drop those roles. And, of course, advisory work gets top rates.
Yeah.
So it gives partners the opportunity to really look at what they do and, you know, learn to say yes, but. Now, there's a lot of myths about delegation. We touched on a few earlier. I think we said it's not about abdicating responsibility. Yet they probably aren't going to be as good as you. You know, it's just best to accept it. And it's not a straight choice between hoarding tasks or dumping them. Oh, I hear that all the time. I don't know about you. You know, it seems to be that people feel there's only two things to do. You hoard the tasks or you dump them on somebody else and don't care about them. And of course, that's so not true. And you've got to break free from this detail freak thing that we, as accountants, you know, we are left brain logical people. So there is a risk that we can micromanage. You know, the common mistakes with a delegation that I find is the very poor briefing, and essentially the whole thing's set up for failure. I sometimes think the person wants to feel important and almost wants it not to work.
Well, that's exactly, because there is an element which I was going to kick in with in a minute, is where partners, so team have gone off, managers gone off, done the, kind of completed the file goes in for a review, and then the partner nearly feels like they have to show how intelligent they are by coming up with 250 review points on it. Whereas either one of two things. First of all, are all 250 review points necessary? Or second of all, if the partner had taken the time during the job to actually go and to talk. So this isn't just about how effective and the value of your time. This is about the value and getting the most out of your team's time. If you actually spent time working during the process to iron out some of that point, there doesn't need to always be this level of rework. And sometimes it is literally, not in all cases, but sometimes it is the partner wanting to show how intelligent and how knowledgeable they are and how many review points they can come up with on an actual file.
Which is basically setting delegation up for failure.
Exactly.
Another classic mistake is interference. You give somebody a job to do, you give them an outcome, and then you don't even let them get on and do it. You interfere, which means you steal away all their authority. Oh, what's going to happen? It's not going to work. And that is another classic mistake. The other one, which, you know, I've got to say is a real danger, especially in accounting firms where, you know, we are detail freaks and you often hear people talk about getting it right. And that is creating a culture of a fear of failure. Yeah, I have definitely seen that in firms where everybody's scared of the partner, they're scared of failure. And what's the result? Nobody takes any risks at all, even calculated risks. Nobody even tries new things. And as a result, everything just stays like it is. So that fear of failure is a really dangerous cultural thing. I see the great firms as the firms where people are empowered. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but in many ways, you can't actually empower anyone. It's an oxymoron. Empowerment is what is created when you have an environment where people feel empowered. And you cannot actually empower someone. They have to feel empowered. So, these are some of the myths and some of the mistakes that people make in terms of delegation. And as a result, a lot of people say, oh, it just doesn't work. I've tried it once. But believe me, when you see people do it, it really does work. So, the 7 key factors that I think allow people to be effective with delegation. And we've touched on some of them already. A clearly defined outcome, recorded. Everybody knows what it is. The delegator knows, the delegator knows. Clear as a bell. You need to select somebody to delegate to who's suitable to achieve the outcomes, obviously. You need to literally assess their abilities to do what they're doing to a level that is acceptable, to a level that isn't high risk. But that doesn't mean they need to be as good as you. They've got to understand their authorities and their responsibilities. You need to, they need to. And that needs to be articulated with the outcomes and timelines, and they and you need to agree on it. So, this is a contract. Everybody knows what's required. Everybody knows what's involved. And then your job's simple. You provide the support and encouragement for them to do it, and never cross agreed authorities, or else it will never work again. Because people don't forget this. There are elephants here. This matters to the partner. So the people we're talking to, this matters to. Believe me, to the person who's being delegated to, it's even more important. This is their whole world. Their boss is trusting them to do something. So this really does matter. And that's why it's important to reflect and feedback on results. Obviously positively. Criticism can be positive, that you're looking for them to learn, you're looking for them to do better. Now, and those factors are per role or per task, depending upon what's been delegated.
Yeah, and I think probably one of the areas of biggest weakness that I see with partners is the reflect and feedback on results. That very often, so work is done, mightn't be necessarily done to the standard the partner wishes. Either partner F's and blinds and say, get out of my room, and then takes it and finishes it. That isn't helping the process or the thing at all. And in fact, what you're doing is you're nearly ensuring the next time. Now, your team or your manager knows, well, if I throw up a crap file, they're just going to sort it out for me, so I might as well, there's no point in me doing much more. And then also how the feedback is given in terms of the growth versus fixed mindset, so where you reward the work and you praise the work and the effort that's gone into it, and not necessarily the outcome, because that'll generate a more, I suppose, more engaged and a more receptive culture.
And effort and blinding a team member and telling them what they've done is rubbish and stealing it back from them. It almost feels like bullying.
Or throwing the file at them across an open plan office.
Yeah, well, of course, we've all had that done to us. I can remember having that done to me many times. But that was a little bit old school, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I always say to partners, how would you feel if your clients did that to you? And we know what the result is. If you really want delegation to work, those key factors really do matter.
And the thing is, delegation and fostering effective delegation, there's an investment in it. So just like anything, you're going to have to invest the time in order to get it right and then to maintain the system. But once it is up and running and once it is effective, you're going to end up reaping the benefits from that.
I'm coaching at the moment a managing director on this, and we got to the stage where we've looked at all these factors and acknowledged it, and it's been sort of implemented. And this last week at a board meeting, you know, I asked, how's it going? And he said, he's doing really well, the manager, really, really well. I'm ever so pleased. Now, actually, what's changed is not the manager. I didn't say anything, but it's not the manager. The manager has been given an opportunity and has been properly supported using this. And woe and betide. Now, of course, everybody's happy now.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just proves everything, really. People are complicated, you know. It's complicated. But if you really want leverage, and you've got to, you know, look at how to effectively delegate. And once you get it, it really works. So that leads us on to those vital next steps, you know, what we've got as the next step we take. So it's so important to get started. You know, advisory's got to be hyper efficient. It's got to sit there next to a strategy of building advisory, and that ensures a firm's ongoing future success. It's all about leverage. Compliance is not disappearing. It's not going anywhere. But if we don't get going with advisory, and we don't build a leverage model, and we don't do these things, we're never going to find time. Nothing's going to change. And we are in the classic double bind. And try it yourself. Put your hands together, pull to the left and the right, and just see how stuck you get. But move all towards it, and then just see how easy it is to get out of the double bind. You know, so we can go at our own pace, you know, but it is so important to just get started. I keep saying it, and the reason I keep saying it is because I really passionately believe in it. Intention really does equal attention. If we believe in something, if we intend to do it, we really will do it. And the most important thing, as we've seen with priorities, is to get started. And it is a strategic priority. And of course, that then gets followed by those vital next step actions.
Okay, Richard. I think that really provides some, I suppose, great ideas on how accountants can find time to implement the important changes needed, and in this case, to really, you know, kind of find time for advisory. So that wraps up this advisory implementation masterclass. I hope the Business Advisory Partner Toolkit is helping you advance your advisory offering and helping you to take the next steps towards becoming a passionate business advisor. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback in relation to this masterclass and also your advisory wins. So please do get in touch. We look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for your continued interest in business advisory, for your attention during this masterclass, and for being part of the businessadvisorypartner.com community. So for myself and Richard, all the best, and we'll see you soon.